me twisting. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Racially Speaking. I'm your host, David Phipps. Please like, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening right now. And of course, check out patreon.com/racially speaking if you'd ever like to financially support the show for as little as $1 a month. You can do that, and you get some bonus engagement from yours truly. All right. I'm really excited about this episode. We've been trying to line up over the last, year or so. Maybe haven't been trying super hard, but I've personally been looking forward to having this person on for a long time. If you're watching, you can already see here, I'm joined by my friend Naomi, all the way from Denver, which, if you guys didn't know, is a 2-hour time difference from East Coast. I'm just not figuring that out this morning, Naomi. Yeah, we had a little mishap. I'm going to take complete blame for that. Mountain time, Eastern Standard Time.
We can share the blame.
Okay, we'll share a little bit of it, right? All right, Naomi. We know each other from having some crossover in community and doing some ministry together off and on. But look, I got a lot to ask you about. You're all the way out in Denver pursuing your PhD in
Hebrew Bible,
yes.
religious studies. Hebrew Bible, so
Hebrew
Old
Bible,
Testament.
Old Testament. Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'm pumped to ask you and dive into some of what we're going to talk about. First, your last name's Arnold now, but your maiden name is Ley. Is that right?
Reversed. My maiden name was Arnold. Now my name is Ley.
Okay. I'm just not realizing this. Did you? I guess you didn't grow up with nicknames if that's your new name, but I'm like, Naomi Ley's got like a ring to it. I feel like people would say, "Have you listened to that like new Naomi Leyh record or whatever?" You ever get that?
Well, the funny thing is that nobody can ever pronounce Ley because it's like spelled weird. Like everyone that I knew before I got married would be like, Naomi Leyh. And I had to just keep telling them it's Ley as in slay.
Oh, yeah. So. I mean, there you go. That'll stick. I'll stick with people. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I saw the spelling, but I just went for it, so I'm glad I nailed it.
Yeah, you did.
Naomi Leyh. I mean,
also, I feel like you've known my husband for a while as well, because he was in the area and like that, like Maryland, Virginia, DC region longer than I was.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we miss you over here on the East Coast. Hopefully the mountains are treating you guys well. Yeah, depends on the day, I guess.
I'm a beach person.
You're a beach person.
It's stuck in the mountains.
Okay. So I'm not gonna lie. Most Black people I know do not rock with the beach. Is that a generalization? I'm just being honest.
Being racist.
I'll own it if I am. That's just in my circles. They're like, hey, we don't walk at the beach.
I don't know. Man. Like my family like loves the beach. Like, I mean, my youngest sister has like skin sensitivity, so she doesn't love it because like it'll mess with her skin a ton. Mm-hmm. But like my family, like we'd like go down to the beach, we'd go on cruises. Like my family loves that type of stuff. Like the grandmother that we were just talking about, like lived in St. Croix for years until a hurricane took the roof off of her house. My dad lived in St. Croix for a number of years, so
okay.
I think I was just
that's like the lifestyle
raised for the beach.
Yeah, that's not just like touristy sometimes beach. That's like that's who you are.
Yeah, so I'm now in a very landlocked state, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
You getting into hiking?
We've been doing some hiking. It's like as you get to know me, you'll be like, this is a person who like doesn't like moving much. So like I like beaches because I can like sit on a beach and read a book. And then like with mountains, you have to like climb a mountain. Like
yeah,
it's a whole another level of intensity that I'm not ready for.
I'm not me and Caitlin are not the outdoorsy people. I mean, I grew up a half hour from the beach, and I would not say grew up going to the beach like regularly whatsoever. And now we kind of live not in Colorado mountains, but in, the Appalachian mountains. I definitely take them for granted. Like very little hikes. I kind of just see them in the distance. I'm like, those are really awesome to look at. And I'm inside.
I get that. I've been trying to get a little bit more into the hiking scene. And I mean, for nothing is more humbling than like taking a hike that's marked as easy and like
Yeah.
just starting to wheeze
Mhm.
because you can't breathe. So
The altitude there
taking it day
is
by day.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking it day by day.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've given like a very brief overview of where you're at, why you might even be coming on this podcast. So go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. What brings you out to pursuing seminary out
Yeah.
in Denver?
Yeah. So I can't remember if I've ever told you this, but I'd like to say that I'm getting my PhD out of spite. Um,
That sounds familiar, to be
yes.
honest.
um, and the ministry I came from, University of Maryland, like incredible ministry. The team leaders there, like I love them. I love that team. But I didn't initially work with that team. I initially worked in Orlando, Florida. And we've talked about there were some very well-meaning people, maybe some not so well-meaning people who just said things that I was like, okay, we need to have some harder conversations about race and culture. And I kind of accidentally fell into that world of like cross-cultural training and like having conversations about race, and then like made it official at one point. But I remember during 2020, there were some people just in the white evangelical world generally who had major pushback on conversations like this because they were like, we need to just focus on the gospel. The Bible doesn't say anything about social justice. And me, as a Black woman who was raised by a Black pastor, who was raised by another Black pastor, I was like, what are y'all talking about? Like, social justice is all over the Bible. And I was raised in a tradition where, like, protesting and speaking out against injustice was an integral part of faith.
Yeah.
And, like, it's really, like, about survival. Like, as Black people, this country is not built for us. It was built by us, but it's not built for us. And there's so many things that we have to think about. And like, as my husband and I are thinking about expanding our family, these are things that we have to think about of like, how are we going to raise Black children in this country where they can feel safe when this country isn't really safe for them, and how they can thrive in a country that's not meant for their thriving. So I was really troubled by some of the conversations that were being had in 2020, and how even like some pretty big name pastors were pushing against the ideas of social justice. So, as a Black woman, I recognize that my voice, unfortunately, but this is the reality, isn't going to be listened to by many people. And so, as I love the Bible and I love these things, but I was like, yeah, to maximize the power of my voice, I need to get a PhD.
Mm,
So that's kind of why, because I saw people saying that justice wasn't in the Bible and thought that was just a wild statement. And because unfortunately, with my positionality, people tend to take me less seriously. It happens literally all the time.
sure. Yeah, I was wondering, do you have any specific examples, and not like names or organizations anymore, but not because I want to water down anything you're feeling, but like I think it's more helpful because I think listening, some people might be like, oh, who are they going to name? But like I want maybe even it's more helpful in this regard with the broad sense of like, unfortunately, it's extremely unfair, but even the narrative and summary of your experience you just gave, especially thinking back to like a 2020, you kind of just said some what I would think, again, unfortunately, might come off to some people as a generic blah blah blah. We get it. You're a black woman. You say you have it harder than everybody, but isn't that just a feeling? And I think obviously there's people that explicitly think that you're making it up. I
But
think
yeah,
there are
there
a
are
lot of
always people who
well-meaning
think I'm
people,
making it up.
right? I think there are also a lot of well-meaning people in our mutual circles don't that don't necessarily think you are making it up, but don't really also probably in the heart of hearts believe your full experience. So like what would you
Yeah.
say to people maybe in that latter category?
Yeah. I mean, I think even just like the idea of not wanting to believe me when I say that,
Mm,
I think is like, I think maybe even examine that. Like, why won't you believe a Black woman when she says, this is what is happening?
mhm,
But there are many examples that I could give. So, I'm married to a white man, and we continually have the experience where I will say something and someone will fight back hard on me and like very much disrespect me. And he'll say more or less the same thing to the same person. And they're like, well, actually, maybe that is something I should think about. And it's like, oh, okay. It's not about what is being said, it's about who is saying it. And like historically, Black women have been perceived as kind of these wild women who are always angry about something. And first off, we have plenty to be angry about.
mm,
But our anger and our righteous anger about the way that we have been treated, we've seen our families treated, we've seen our friends treated, shouldn't affect whether or not we listen to Black women. So, like, as I've said, there's people listening to my husband more. There's like, even like some of my best friends are white women. And we've been in conversations with people where it's the same thing where I I will say something and a person is like, I don't know, and like fight back on me. And it's not until like my white female friends say, actually, no,
mm,
like let's pause. And I think that this is right. Like there's kind of, it feels like there's almost a hierarchy of who people will listen to. I'm not saying that I'm at the bottom because I recognize that I come from a place where, yeah, I grew up with good education, like I speak well. And now I am in a PhD program. And, but even before there, like I went on this journey, I went to college.
yeah,
So there's more like people listen to me even just because of my class.
mhm, yeah. Do you guys, yeah, sure, that's like an interesting, maybe that's putting it too lightheartedly, but dynamic between you and your husband, you a black woman being married to a white male. Because me and Caitlin, my wife, uh, talk about this sometime with our dynamic. Because I'll notice, and our dynamic is obviously different, but like, when I'll experience something like a microaggression or something, and our kids are starting to come into the mix with this kind of thing too, and we're navigating that kind of thing with her being white, and then but I've learned a lot too, and I'm noticing things with our dynamic too of like, oh well, I I notice heavily when I get taken more seriously as a man versus her as
Yes.
a woman, and so we kind of balance not balance each other out, but like talk about that and notice those kind of dynamics. And kind of like what you just said, I mean, we have sometimes nothing more than our experience to go off of and to tell people about when people ask us to give examples or to teach us about a certain social dynamic we're speaking up about. The unfortunate thing is often it's our experiences that are the most powerful and I would think would be most convincing, but they're also the easiest thing to discount, I think, for people that don't want to listen.
1000%.
They're like, that is that really
And
what
like
happened?
it's
Yeah.
always like, oh, you're reading into it too much.
Yeah.
Like that's probably like not what this person meant. And it's like
Mhm.
whether or not like this is what a person meant, like sometimes people mean to do things like don't mean to
Right.
do things that they do.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, I love that what you said, the out of spite you're getting your PhD, and that even just that quick explanation you've given makes a lot of sense. What do you think? I think about mentorship or discipleship is what we say in a lot of Christian circles. How do you feel like, your representation in the end, like PhD, black female professor in seminary setting or academia in general, like what do you think? Why is that uh powerful to the next generation?
Yeah. So I think about this a lot because I never feel like I'm doing enough.
Mm,
But I mean, I say that I got my PhD out of spite, but also like looking at this field and especially Old Testament, like I I could probably count on one hand the amount of Black women Hebrew Bible professors there are in the
hmm
country. Um, and it's just a very short list. And it is predominantly older white men who have like really amazing things to say, but don't necessarily know what to say when it comes to race and culture and racism. And they like that doesn't negate the good things that they're doing. But I think that in this day and age, we need to be talking about these things, and especially Black and brown men and women want to hear more and like want to see that representation in biblical studies and biblical interpretation. So I find that I am in a space where I get to bring in the concerns of my people
Yeah.
and bring up the things that like we have been talking about into these white spaces and like bring up things that we're currently struggling with and figure out, okay, where can the Bible help us and where can it encourage us in this fight for freedom?
hmm I'm assuming it's going to be both, but do you feel like you have more of a heart for your academia and like your colleagues, or like the incoming students you'll be teaching, ideally?
Yeah, so at the base of it, my heart is for the students. Like my lofty dream is that professors in other schools would use some of my stuff um, in
Yeah.
their classrooms and like their students would be impacted too.
Mm,
But like at the heart of it, like I really care about those who are going to be in ministry, whether that's pastoral, whether that's like through parachurch, whatever, and helping them to figure out how to navigate just our current world through a biblical lens.
yeah. Yeah, man, that's great. Yeah, I kind of go back and forth with man, do I care about like in a church setting? facilitating conversation around this for church leaders or the next generation? Because I feel like I don't know if you'd agree, but like I think that conversation, there's some overlap, but it's so different. And I think the level of accountability to me is just where I can't get away from, because the people that have
Yes.
the power and that are teaching X, Y, and Z, I think like to me that's the issue, and that's where I'm like, we need to start there, because what I found, and I'm around college students a lot, is for at least the ones I'm around, what I've actually keenly noticed is a lot of this generation, yes, is very social justice minded, but I think even within Christian circles, black, brown, white, a lot of the students I'm around actually are much more rose-colored glasses a little bit, like with hope,
Yeah.
and actually aren't so much on the social justice train right now. And I think that is not a bad or good thing. Like I think it's just like I fight it internally with like, okay, I want to disciple these college students to care about this stuff more, because there's such a disconnect, and that just has not been true of how I grew up getting discipled. But I also don't want to have them, I don't want to disciple like an angst of being so socially justice minded, when they like are just living their life happily, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And so to me, I just err so much on the side of like the, yeah, like you said, the Christian leaders and my peers of like, guys, we have to be the ones to do this well, disciple well. Like I know have so I like you, I have so many um white friends, look up to so many white pastors that are brilliant and great. But like you, I mean, I feel like you are living out what to solve an exact problem that I personally see. And I'm like, I know so many of my friends who are white that all these seminary degrees, and for the most part, this isn't their fault, but the social justice element is absent
Yeah.
in a large way, and it's like that's the issue, that's the problem of like there's a
Yeah.
disconnect between ministry and getting this like these expertise deplete of social justice. And I'm a huge believer in, that's when a 2020 rolls around, and that's why the church is deer in the headlights or pushing back of like, oh,
Absolutely.
we don't know what to do. Black or brown person in the church, can you help us figure this out? It's like, no, that's
The amount of conversations I've been pulled into.
right. It's like, no, that's why you have the degree. That's why you should be ready for this. Not that they know everything, but it's like that's the issue of like, now the burden's on me, and not a good way to help figure this out.
Yes.
Hence,
And like,
anyway.
how much more could like, how I always think of like how wonderful it could be if people entering ministry could be just more prepared for it. Because, like,
Yes.
as I say, like the seminary professors that are out there right now, like, there's some like total rock stars that I have met, and like whose work and pedagogy, like, I hope one day to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that if we have predominantly older white men and some, not many, older white women, they don't have to think about these things because for them it's not about survival like it is for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I think to the broader like white evangelical world, they've got to be, they and we, like I say, we're part of it too, but like have the white people specifically have to be more okay with just empathizing and understanding the different things we're navigating. And one thing that comes to mind is you have to be okay with the disappointment I and you would feel if a white pastor that we've grown up to respect and been taught and discipled through says something really insensitive and problematic. That is on
Yeah.
us personally to be able to do what we want with it, and not to be told, "Oh, well, they're human. They're not perfect," or you can't, you know, you can't judge them for this one thing. And it's up to us, and you have to always understand of like, yeah, we understand that, but it's okay that it is hurtful and that it is eye opening for that to be an eye opening moment for us to be like, dang, that came out of this person. I've believed this, and this about them. It doesn't mean it's a zero sum game, but it does mean I'm gonna think about that a little bit. I'm also gonna think about some other blind spots that are seeing, which hence the whole the critique on culture and where we're at now with everything being
Yeah.
polarized. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that like along with that, like there's this recognition of like people are human, like you and I are going to screw up. But also, I think that one of the things that's been challenging to me over this time has been when people screw up, it's like certain screw ups are, we say like, oh, like you should just like be able to get over it. And like, but then if something happens for another person, then like, and they're like, well, I'm just going to completely cut off everything. Like the amount of support that
Yeah.
my husband and I have lost just because like someone thinks that someone that we're somewhat affiliated with said something
Mm,
that might be supportive of like the LGBT community when not what they it's not even what they said. And like,
yeah.
I mean, I
You're
have friends in
affirming
the
you're
LGBT.
affirming their humanity? How
It's like,
dare you?
oh,
Yeah.
how dare you? And it's
Mm,
just like, oh my gosh, if they're allowed to pull funding, pull support, not want to
yeah.
associate with us anymore, but then like get mad at me when I am like frustrated when like a pastor or theologian or someone in this
Mhm.
world says something racist. Like there's a double standard there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel I mean, you alluded to the, angry black woman trope. I think, there's also, like, an angry minority trope as well.
Yes.
I think there are for sure degrees, and I do think, it's a different level, the angry black woman trope. I'll just acknowledge that. One weight that I do feel like when it's I feel we're perpetually in Christian circles having to navigate. Okay, is this? I was talking about this with the buddy earlier last week, but it's like, all right, is this an angry minority day or is this a keep to myself day? Because you're like in the moment when you're navigating something, it's like, am I? Is this? Am I gonna let this get to me, or do I need to protect my peace and keep it moving? And I think that like, which book is that?
Healing racial trauma.
Healing racial child. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, I think that like, I lost what I was gonna say with how I set you up for that question, but yeah, I think the lack of just not being able to. You might have more eloquent words for this, but like not having the freedom to process something. Yeah, whether it's trauma, whether it's just a
Oh
small
yeah.
like microaggression. It's like no, it's okay that bothers me, and let's navigate that. But I don't need to. Oh, I know. I was gonna say like the backdrop, even like in our country, that it's like let's not learn correct history. Like, hey, we need to leave that. Obviously, like we need to leave slavery in the past. We need to leave segregation in the past. We need to leave Japanese internment camps in the past. But everything else, like never forget, right? Never forget, never forget. Always remember,
Yes.
always remember. It's like
As
it's
long as it fits into the
yeah,
narrative of US
yes.
exceptionalism, like that's really what matters.
It's just such an elementary level of hypocrisy that is jarring sometimes that I'm like, and the only way to talk about it correctly is I feel like to at least in some ways, maybe in really big ways, unfortunately, at times is to be like, all right, I'm gonna be the angry minority in this conversation. I just I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I have been reflecting on that like might be a bit controversial because it's not a Christian source,
Hmm.
like explicitly. I believe she like grew up Christian, might still like identify. Well, she's dead now, but I've been reading Audre Lorde,
Hmm.
um, and she has a wonderful essay called "The Uses of Anger,"
Mm.
and like it's absolutely beautiful. And like she takes on like these angry Black women, angry minority tropes, and points out, hey, first off, we have real things to be angry about. We're not just like angry about nothing,
Yeah.
but also that anger can be used productively to point out injustice in the world, to have the hard conversations, and to like try to fight for change.
Hmm.
And I think that, like, yes, there are plenty of times where absolutely I'm an angry Black woman. But I'm also proud of that because I know that I'm not angry about nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I see the way that my people are being treated. I see even just like I've seen police brutality within my own family.
Hmm.
I've seen like family members who were killed who did not get the justice that they deserved. Whereas like the same exact thing happened within the same like little area that I grew up in to a white girl. And she got the justice that she deserved. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't have,
Hmm.
but I want that for my family too.
Yeah.
And I think that it is important to be angry and to acknowledge those feelings,
Hmm.
but you can't just like sit on them. You like have to let it move you to Jesus and like seek him first and let it move you towards action. I think that that's one of the things that I find very challenging about a lot of white evangelical spaces is they say like give God your anger and like full stop.
Hmm.
And that's all you're supposed to do is just give God your anger and think not think about how the world has all of these injustices and like and rather not see how as ambassadors of Jesus Christ we have the ability and the responsibility to show the world what heaven on earth looks like. And part of that is engaging in social justice movements and trying to fight for the minoritized and marginalized. Um, but I also think, sorry, I have a lot of thoughts on
This is
this.
great.
So, like, bringing your anger to Jesus, not just letting it stop at Jesus, but working with God for his things. But also, like, this is exhausting work and can be really dangerous work sometimes. And
Also,
I think that it's,
what do you mean dangerous?
I mean, the amount of people who have gotten shot,
Mm.
like the amount of our leaders, Dr. King, who've gotten shot,
Hmm.
first off.
Hmm.
But also, like yesterday, I saw this interview at one of the No Kings protests, and the person was interviewing like this older white granny who was just like so sweet. And the question was, hey, we're not seeing many Black and brown people out at this protest. Like, don't you think that they also should be doing this? And her
Mm.
answer was, no. First off, like, we're the ones who elected
Mm.
like
Hmm.
this. But also, it is so much more dangerous for a Black or brown person to be marching the streets right now. We're the ones who are going to like be targeted by the police, who are going to be more likely to be arrested, like and more likely to be harassed. So like there is a level of like we need our white brothers and sisters to speak up more about these things because they have just a level of protection that we don't.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, regardless of the politics of No Kings, like, I think that was a really important moment. Also, I
Mm-hmm.
don't really love Trump, but that's don't like the Orange Man, but sorry.
Yes.
Um,
Listeners have heard this pointing from me, so you're good.
but yeah, I think that there's a there's a reasonable, like, sorry, let me get my train of thought back. I think it's reasonable to acknowledge that it is more dangerous for Black and brown people than it is for white people to engage in protest and to engage in these conversations. Also, it's exhausting to do this work. And like, there's a level where like we have to take care of ourselves to an extent that our white brothers and sisters, I mean, they do too, but like, it's just more urgent for us.
Yeah.
Like this past year, I I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Title VI?
Not off the top of my head. And I'm not saying that to act like I do know. I might know if you start talking about it, but I do
Okay, so
not positive.
Title IX is about sexuality, gender,
Yeah.
all of that, and it protects students on the from discrimination on
Mm-hmm.
the basis of those things. Title VI is essentially the same, but is on the basis of race, culture, and ethnicity.
Okay, I should
And the
know that. I know a
institution,
lot of Title IX because of having to be trained on it in academia, but yeah, I don't
yeah,
know Title. Yeah, okay.
but we don't talk about Title VI very
Yeah.
often. And one of the institutions that I spend a lot of time at has multiple Title VI complaints. And it's very disturbing. And even this past year, like, I have had to deal with a lot of microaggressions, a lot of just regular,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also in the midst of me trying to figure out like what Foucault is saying and like trying to understand some very challenging texts. But I'm expected to be my best and come to class totally prepared while also holding the weight of being told, hey, code switching isn't really that big of a deal and people like are way too sensitive by one of the whitest men I've ever met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there is, I have to be very intentional about taking care of myself because like this is important work. It's work that needs to be done. I mean, also, I'm trying to keep my GPA intact at school,
Mm-hmm.
but also trying to just keep intact as a human.
Yeah. I think it's completely legitimate, just even if you stop at because it's exhausting. When I think about that, reporter asking the woman, there are not a lot of Black people out here protesting with us, but yeah, the protection thing is really is helpful. Yeah, to even think about that consciously of, yeah, it's literally just not, it's less safe for you, for you to be out there statistically, and just like, I mean, factually, it's less safe. And hey, we're tired. Like, it is
So exhausting.
it's exhausting. Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to take a nap
Uh-huh.
most of the time.
Yeah, it's a Saturday after. Like, I've been doing this. I'm gonna take a nap. You
Yeah.
guys can walk the
I
streets.
mean, sometimes the holiest thing you can do is take a nap.
Yeah, definitely. When you're talking about that, it made me think of. Have you read Gentle and Lowly?
I have.
Okay. Oh, you don't like it?
I don't like it.
No way.
I
Okay.
don't like.
Wow. Okay. That's okay. Hey, do you? No. Well, there's a quote in there. That says compassion and indignation rise and fall together, and
Mm,
it was in. I think it's kind of talking about. I wrote it down. I think he was breaking down the flipping the tables part
yeah.
in the Gospels when Jesus goes in the temple and people are using it as a supermarket or whatever, and he flips the tables, and that's obviously people know what that verse is. Most people, Christian or non, and it's used to justify getting really angry. Hey, Jesus was angry. He was a social justice warrior. He flipped tables, blah, blah, blah. And then the other side of things of, well, that was the pushback is that was the only time it's in the Bible. So like we are taking this out of context. So like I think both sides have a decent argument. I like how at least he put this and said compassion or I'm gonna mess it up. Yeah, compassion and indignation rise and fall together, meaning like it's got to be in the right place. And so I'd wonder how you navigate. Forget the book, Gentle and Lowly, but how do you navigate? I'm so interested that maybe that's another conversation.
We can
How do you
explain
navigate
later.
that tension of um even that scene, like with Jesus flipping the tables? Like, how do you personally
Mm,
reconcile now? Maybe it's the angry minority thing, but like now's the time to flip the table, that's it, or when's the time to
yeah.
um I don't know, continue to sit back and not flip the table? I don't know, like where's the line?
Yeah. It's really funny that you ask this because my pastor was literally just talking about this
Okay.
on Sunday.
Oh, great.
Um, but I think like one of the things that you have to keep in mind is the context of that passage
Hmm.
and that it was that the money changers and vendors were charging like exorbitant amounts of money,
Hmm.
like many times what it was worth. And oftentimes to people are coming in from all over to worship at the temple. And part of what that looked like was animal sacrifice. And you could bring the animal with you, but like that's a lot of work. It's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of extra things to bring with you because you have to like keep the animal fed and watered on your journey. And depending on how far you're coming, that it just might not be practical.
Yeah.
So it's not they they were selling animals. That was fine because it would have allowed people coming from far away to actually worship God. But it was the fact that they were charging so freaking much.
Yeah.
And that was getting in the way of their worship and their
Hmm.
thriving. And I think, and that's why Jesus flips the tables. And like, I think that the tables that I'm flipping, trying to flip, like, you have to ask yourself, like, is it getting in the way of people worshiping God? Is it getting in the way of people thriving? And like the tables that we're talking about for today, it's like people getting killed in the street by the police, people being detained and locked up by ICE. Like I have a friend who has a family member detained by ICE. They lost 40 pounds in 2 months.
Mm.
Like it's deplorable conditions that
Hmm.
like are completely inhumane. Like these are condition these are the things that we're fighting against. And like I think that oftentimes it's easy to think like, oh, like when we're all together and like when we have diversity, things are fixed. But no, like this is literally about survival.
Hmm.
And if people can't are worried about their survival, how can they flourish well and like worship God fully? Like, not, and I will say, I come from Black church tradition. Like, I'm the great great granddaughter of an enslaved person. I know that there can be beautiful, wonderful moments of worship and like worship practices built in the midst of oppression. But when I think that it's a difference between flipping tables out of inconvenience versus flipping tables when it's about survival and worship.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think about this passage often because I think it's just so much where we're consistently as Christians at. Like, I think it's the headway we're consistently at right now. Like, gosh, like, is like when is too much? And it's a good heart check of, is this one of those moments or is it not? And now, I'm not Jesus. The things I see lately are, I just cannot help but picture them as modern day temples of where this would have happened. Like, I just, this is not, this is my interpretation, listeners. So don't say, oh, don't say David's putting in, inserting himself in the Bible. I'm not. It's my interpretation. But I think videos of our elected officials over immigration and being able to make laws about the well-being of other human beings, when there's videos of them praying together and praying the same words that maybe you and I would say, like in our own prayer time, like together, as if it's just like another church meeting or ministry meeting, and then going out to then terrorize Black and brown people mainly.
It's ridiculous.
I think that is that is the time that table they're sitting at should be flipped. And I think that is a critique
Yes.
on Christianity in the evangelical circles of, okay, what you think about watching this says a lot about where you're at in this conversation to me. Cause I'm like, if that's not the time to flip the table, then you're never going to flip it. You are
No
never
one
going to
thousand
flip it.
percent.
Like, that you should lose sleep over being okay with that. And I don't say they condemn people or shame people. I'm like, we all have our threshold, but I'm like, that has got to be, it's got to be way more common for the Christian response to that scene to be, like, I'll risk it all to flip that table. Like, that is not okay. Like, this whole posture of seeing that of, well, at least they're praying, like anything good can come from that. It's like, no,
No.
that's not, that is not, that's not the Christian response to that. That's actually blasphemy. That's uh, using the Lord's name in vain. That's all these different things. That is what we're learning about, and we have this, bring it full circle. We don't have the wherewithal and discipleship in us that has taught us how to respond to something like that, because we're told that unless it's one single issue, we're told that it's just turn the other cheek, or don't judge people, or
Yeah.
just trust it's in God's hands. It's like, no. Those are platitudes. Like, we need to move past these like generic uh action steps that we're teaching in our circles, and be more equipped to not flip every table, but to be able to discern and look and be like, oh, that's what that looks like. That's when we need to actually flip a table and do something. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I got animated.
Yeah. I also want to like double click on what you said about taking the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah,
Because like I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was taught that like that just meant like saying curse words
yeah,
or
or
like
just,
saying, "Oh my God,"
yeah.
or like those things. But
Mm-hmm.
like it's it's really more about like how we use the Lord's name and how we use like these spiritual symbols to justify our actions and like say this is what the Lord wants, when it's like actually God is like God loves people. And I think one of the things that is just so disheartening about this is like, well, first off, that this is very much a media and propaganda
Mm-hmm.
war. Like the narratives that people are being presented, like, are like it's propaganda. It's presenting a specific political belief and idea that dehumanizes Black and Brown people.
Mm-hmm.
So for officials to pray first and then go out to terrorize Black and Brown people means that they have to dehumanize and see Black and Brown people as less than human in order to terrorize them, in order
Mm-hmm.
to not see that the idea of Imago Dei extends to these people.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what is just so, it hurts so much to see my white brothers and sisters, like, as you say, well, at least they prayed first,
Yeah.
rather than seeing,
At least they sang worship
yeah,
song.
no, this is, yeah, exactly. At least they did this. At least they thought. There's always a qualifier of at least they, rather than seeing, no, they're calling what God has called very good evil. And that's a huge, huge problem. Like, so you asked me before all of this about like book recommendations, and if it's okay, because like it's connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gonna bring out my book recommendation.
Not Gentle and Lowly.
Not Gentle and Lily. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But I have yet to like read this fully because I just got it this weekend. So part of the whole PhD life is you go to conferences and all of that. So I was at this one this weekend and met this author, and he gave an incredible talk about his new book. So the book that I have is Damned Whiteness by David E. Evans.
Okay.
And the subtitle is How White Christian Allies Failed the Black Freedom Movement. So what he's doing is he's going into the archives and looking at these historic white allies, and like they do some good things, but still miss the mark. And I think that this is what he finds is still going on today. So he talks about how oftentimes white Christian allies will really, their whole thing is, hey, come join us, come join our movements, and like help us be more diverse so that we can look like the kingdom of God, which, like, that is a fine thing to do.
That is a good
But
thing.
it's good. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. But especially for Black people, for us, it's about freedom and survival. Full stop. That's what we want. That's what we need. And so often, what goes on for us is when we have these white Christian allies, they want to have like the kumbaya moment, like let's all come together, but aren't there when it's like, hey, we're literally dying out here. And so like one of the people that he's talking about is, I'm gonna get the name confused, but have you heard of Koinonia Farms? I just heard about this.
I don't think so.
But this one guy in like the 50s and 60s started this farm where he wanted Black and white people to work side by side, and like it's going to teach Black people how to farm like we hadn't been forced to do it for hundreds of years. But like when people would be like, you shouldn't do this, like we need to keep the races separate, all that like craziness. he fought back, which is great. But the thing is that his farm didn't actually have that many Black people in it, because it's way more dangerous for them to be a part of this than for him to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he met with Dr. King and was like, hey, I just really want you to stop marching. Because, like, I don't think that this is what God wants us to do. Like, we shouldn't be protesting.
Yeah.
And, like, his daughter at one point was like, hey, I want to help integrate this movie theater. And he's like, if you just go in with your friends, I will help you. But if you boycott and picket and you get arrested, I'm not helping you.
Mm.
And this is kind of my experience with a lot of people who call
Yeah.
themselves white allies. So it's like, let's be together. But when it comes to like fighting for change in our country, well, like, this is something that God's going to do in time. Like, that's always the answer. Is like, God will do it eventually. Like, when Jesus returns, like, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that leaves people who are being marginalized and oppressed now in a really difficult situation,
Yeah.
where if we don't actually address these problems and recognize that God gives us agency, that God like has us on his mission, like we know that God God does not need us to share the gospel,
Mm-hmm.
but he invites us into that. And I think it's very similar for justice movements where, yes, God does not need us, but invites us to participate in this and expects us to participate in this. And so, yeah, Damned Whiteness. I'm very excited to read it. I'm sending it to a few people. I have a few friends who are already starting to read it too, and we're going to just start book discussions on it.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah.
It doesn't sound dissimilar from Jamar Tisby's Color Compromise. I don't know if you've ever read that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big one for me reading that a while
Yeah.
back.
Maybe a less inflammatory name.
Yeah. But it's at least
But
the broad topic that you said it was about seemed somewhat similar. Yeah. Do you this is great. How do you the working together thing is always really interesting to me, because obviously the inverse of racism, of segregation, and socioeconomic disparity, all this, like the inverse is to come together and for things to be equal, equality, whatever, acceptance. But obviously the maybe not obviously, I think the disconnect so much in why we get this so wrong, other than there being heart pushback. I think where we go wrong is the timetable of how we need to go about this. And I think, I mean, it's a little bit about what you're touching on of like, okay, well, I want you to do it this way and then I'm on board. But if it's this way, I'm out. Just the lack of realization from, in that case, white people thinking that they are still privy to dictate how we solve, with pain with broad strokes, how we solve what they've already caused. And we can't even get from that first step, because it's like, oh, well, because then it gets turned into a, dare I say, fragility thing, and well, now
yes.
you're being divisive, all this kind of stuff. And so I really would wonder. I think about this all the time, because I have a heart for having these conversations with anybody that wants to have them and come together. But I'm very, very cynical at heart, and I that trips me up sometimes. I'm like, man, if I could just, can I just let this go? I'm sure people think that about me, like, and a lot of times, like we could just move forward if you just let this go. I find myself fighting certain tendencies, because I'm like, yeah, I need to let go, and nothing's gonna be perfect. Let's just take this first step. But I'm so committed to certain things. To me, and whether this is unrealistic or not, I want to hear what you say. Certain things have to be pure in how we go about certain things, because I'm like, if this isn't going to come from the right place initially, it's going to fall apart. And I have
1,000%.
I have a long list of why I'm right about at least that part. And so I would just wonder like what it looks like to work, I'm doing air quotes, together. And I got like two kind of historical examples, I guess, but like, and I'm not expert on either of these people, but like Dr. King and then Malcolm X, my assessment of their broad approach is like there's obviously a lot of crossover, but I kind of associate Dr. King with the approach of much more come together, like we need to work together regardless of race, and obviously this gets taken out of context, but his dream is that we would all be together and that we would be judged by by the content of a character, not the color of our skin, blah blah
Mm.
blah. So we know what's behind that, and then I take like my assessment. This is where I'm not
Also, real
anywhere.
quick, you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry, hear me
You're
now.
breaking up a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll say some of that last part again and then go back and see what happens. But all right, two historical kind of examples that I think about when I think about working together. Is you got Dr. King that I would paint with a broad stroke and say he's much more a come together regardless
Mhm.
of race. I want everyone to be judged by the content of their character, not cover their skin, come together. And my assessment of like a Malcolm X is he just wants safety, as you talked some about, for Black people at all costs. He's a lot more, I think, blunt about that. Like I would say he's probably like he would view like maybe what Ruby Bridges did as a little girl, being the first girl to go to the white school. I'd assume he would say like, nah, that shouldn't even be necessary. This girl,
Mm.
our people should not have to go through that. That should not be the step that has to be taken for racism to be solved. And so I'd wonder where on the scale you kind of lean with what you think is fair kind of on that spectrum. And I also heard one other thing recently. I was listening to a talk, and the person talked about Shirley Chisholm. As I don't know much about her, but she was an activist, and then she was the first Black woman to, I think, maybe officially run for president. And her opposition was George Wallace, who was a like staunch, like committed segregationist, like super big racist, like all the things. And he got an assassination attempt was on him, and he got shot, went to the hospital. And Shirley Chisholm was like one of the first people to go to the hospital and talk to him. And the story is like, she showed compassion and kind of talked about their similarities more so than their opposition, and kind of talked about where they agreed politically. And the thing that was powerful about this in this talk is that he was convinced of a lot of what she was saying, and he actually was moved so much that he went back to a lot of his Southern audience and started like retracting a lot of stuff and advocating for a lot of stuff that Shirley Chisholm was saying. And so that stories like that are always, of course, used to be like, see, look, we just need to hear each other out, talk to each other, and come together. And that's the answer, not this arguing back and forth, da da da. So I'd wonder. This is very long winded, but I wonder how you view that dynamic of moving forward, like today, where we're at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, first, I also want to like kind of broaden Dr. King and Malcolm X, because I don't think that because Dr. King was also very much about the thriving and survival of Black people.
Yes.
And like his work was so controversial that like, I mean, we have letters from a Birmingham jail,
Mm-hmm.
which was like initiated because when he was in jail in Birmingham, like because of his protests, a bunch of white pastors sent him letters that were like, you need to stop doing this.
Right.
And basically just like, change will come gradually, like accept the status quo. And he was like, no, like this is not okay. And it's about so much more than like desegregation. And like um as both Sorry, I just got a text from a friend.
You're fine.
But as like both went through their lives, they actually like started to come more towards the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important to say. And I think that like where I'm at is being together and diversity is a wonderful first step because I don't think that we can get to other spaces without like white people understanding Black and brown perspectives. But what bothers me is when that's the goal, not a step,
Mm.
but a goal.
Yeah.
Because like it might be uncomfortable, but like to be in other cultural spaces, but you're not giving up a ton, honestly.
Yeah.
And what is actually needed is going to cost some people. And like it's going to be uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
like there are laws that need to be changed. And like we would need to really examine so much of our country. And it's a lot of heavy lifting that would have to be done because racism is like embedded into the very foundation of our country. I mean, the Constitution says that Black people are technically 3/5 of like a person when it comes to like how many delegates
Mm-hmm.
that state gets, but like it's essentially saying that Black people are 3/5 of a person. So if that's what our Constitution says, like how like we need to really re-examine so much, and there's so much that would have to get overhauled that I don't think many white people are ready for.
Yeah.
But I do think that diversity is like a first like baby step to the bigger structural things that
Mm.
need to happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's definitely helpful. I want to honor your time, but let me ask you a couple more. We've kind of, I mean, are on the heels of really touching on this, but thinking about where we're at today.
Also, I'm really sorry you're breaking up again.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Is this better at
I think
all?
it might be the connection.
It could be. Is this better at all?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, listeners, if we've been breaking up at all. Yeah, definitely tell me if that happens. Maybe it's my signal. Your signal's great. Where do you think we're at today as far as, I'm doing air quotes, like progress is, and I guess we have to just think about it in terms of like a 2020, 2019-ish and on, not in the grand scheme of things, like since, decades, but where do you think we're at as far as what I think maybe a lot of people listening would say that's when I really started caring or start following a lot of racial issues. Do you think things both in Christian circles and not have progressed at all? Because I know people are getting tired of this. Getting tired of this conversation.
Uh, you had this question in your email, and I was like, ugh.
Is that your
I
answer?
don't like it, but I'm very pessimistic,
Okay.
honestly.
Hey, welcome to the club.
Yeah, I mean, and I was worried in 2020, honestly, when I saw all of these well-meaning white people like post the black square on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
like take a knee in the Capitol with their kente cloth, like all of those things. It's just odd. um,
Mm.
and
Good times.
because the thing is that so much of it felt performative. And I think, and I was like, okay, you're going to be here like for these like few weeks. And in a few years, what's it going to be? And I think that I have not seen the change that I would have wanted to see, but like I have seen the change that I've expected to see because I feel like
Yeah.
it was like this moment of catharsis in 2020 rather than a moment of actually seeking change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, I've mentioned it before. I think that the stories out in media and like, especially like thinking about some other podcasts and YouTube and like all of those things. Like my husband works at a small engineering school here in Colorado, and like love those students. Well, like one of the things that I've realized is the incoming freshmen were like in elementary school when Trump was first elected
Yeah.
president.
Yeah.
And
I
like
never thought
they
about it in that
think that
term.
like,
Hmm.
yeah, and they think that like this state of things is normal. And like the media that they are exposed to is like so derogatory towards
Yeah.
people that aren't white, male, straight, cis,
Yeah.
insert like whatever normative thing there is. So they have been trained for the last 10 years to really just see like Black people, brown people, gay people as the enemy.
Mm.
And so, and their churches have not necessarily fought back on that. And so I'm not the most optimistic. I think that there are a lot of things that we need to deal with, and one of them being like the media that adults consume and also that young people consume.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said. I think I would share the exact same feeling as a fellow pessimist and cynic.
I
I
don't want to be a pessimist, but
no,
I
yeah,
think I'm just being a realist.
yeah, yeah. That's why I like to say on a good day that I'm just a realist. Yeah, I'm a realist. Yeah, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I think I just can't get away from the reality that it stems from just a broad truth. I just think, and I think Christians, broadly speaking, we're too fragile and we're not able to own the things that we have just got to own in order to move forward. And that's what I talk about, like the purity of where we're going to start and move forward. We're going to get stuff wrong, but
Yeah.
we can't, it's the Christian thing of confession, repentance, and owning stuff. Like we have to be able to do those things. And this isn't to say, and I think we can own stuff collectively and then go at it individually in different ways. Everyone's got their own calling and everyone's got their own job to do in the fight. I think we're not all supposed to do the same things. And I think scripture is really clear about individual things and then collective things as people. Anyway, I'm ranting. I think there's just a truth. I heard someone say this recently on another podcast, but I think a lot of the reason we're at where we're at in our country politically is because of Christians in voting. The I guess there's a world in which statistics lie, but I don't think these lie. Upwards of 80% of white evangelical Christians voted for Trump all 3 times. And so
Yeah.
that's just like he is in office because of us, like white evangelical Christians. And that's you
You and I are not white
we're
evangelical
not,
Christians
yeah, but
because we're
people
not
identify
white.
with. You're right. I was not part of that. Yeah, you're right. Good distinction. But I say that because not to shame each individual person that was part of that. I am saying it as I think a shameful thing as a people, because there could be, and I think that's important because I think individually, I know people that voted for him that really, really labored through their convictions at whichever time, whichever election it was, and
Yeah.
genuinely do not like him or feel good about it. And like, I get it. Like, I wrestle with what you wrestle with, but collectively,
It makes sense.
the discipleship thing, which bring it full circle, I just feel like that's the result of the lack of discipling well and cultural wherewithal to understand how to navigate things when things are hard. And the gut reaction has just been, this is what I mean. That's so interesting what you said about the kids in college now being in elementary school when Trump first came on the scene. But like, just having the gut reaction when, you know, crap hits the fan of like, oh, this is just what we do. Like, I'm just gonna err on this side and deal with it. And we're dealing with it, and we don't want to admit why we're here and what's going on. And I don't, you know this, Naomi, but people listening, I'm not saying that to say, I've been accused of this in the past, so I'm not saying this to say, if you voted for Trump, you're not a Christian. 100% not saying that. I'm saying
No.
there's issues stemming from this collective false belief in this nationalist thing that we haven't even unpacked. So look at me just dropping that big term in there at the end of this
I feel like
episode.
there's a whole other
yeah.
like conversation that we need to have about like the history of Christian nationalism and like going back to the Cold War.
And there's legitimately so many people that really are not seeing the connection, and that's, again, is another thing. But that was a super long-winded way to say that is why I am not the most hopeful, and maybe I would measure progress as not great, but also what I expected, in your words.
Yeah. Like, I was talking to my husband the other day when I was coming back from this like religious studies association conference. And like, it's just kind of talking about my frustration over these things. And because I'm always like, am I doing enough? And it's like, I can only do what I can do. And like, currently I'm in a PhD program. I have like 5 books that I have to read just this week.
Not including Damned Whiteness?
No.
Yeah.
That's on top.
Yeah. That's your light reading.
The 5 books. Just a light read.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's fine. But he was just like, okay, Naomi, what's the definition of successful evangelism? And I was like, okay, it's taking the initiative, the power of the Holy Spirit to share the gospel and leaving the results up to God. And he was like, okay, that's what you can do.
Yeah, it's good.
Like when it comes to these conversations is like, you can take the initiative and the power of the Holy Spirit to like speak out against justice and leave the results up to God.
Yeah, it's good.
And like, there are just so many things where it's like, it is so much bigger than any one of us. And like, we need to we need to take the initiative, but like, we also have to trust God in it. And I don't know what God's going to do. But I also think like, this might be like a very controversial take, but going back to the whole thing of discipleship in this, like Black churches, we talk about justice and like justice often has to be political because it's like embedded in our laws.
100%.
So like Black churches don't necessarily shy away from politics.
Yeah.
Or like what a lot of white churches say, this is too political, when we're like, this is just justice, this is survival.
Yeah.
And I think that if more pastors and people in ministry were willing to have those conversations that feel a little too political, but are really about the survival of people that are created in the image of God, then hopefully we can like start to help people understand that, yes, they're like, neither party is perfect, but there's one party right now that's like really actively looking for the destruction of Black and brown peoples.
Yeah, something that's been helpful for me in short conversations with people to say on that note is like, of course, neither party is good. Both parties are jacked up, and I don't actually trust any of them. I don't trust politicians. I'm not like on one side.
I'm not affiliated with the party.
Right. I am on the side of just seeing with my own eyes, hearing with my own ears that one side is claiming Christianity in a really hypocritical, horrible way, and one side isn't. And so I start there and kind of go like, I'm just kind of going from there. I'm like, yes, like we should view all this from our Christian lens in this conversation, but that's where we have to use what I wouldn't even say is a high level of wisdom. Is just like a pretty low level of wisdom. Like, what side is just speaking on the daily absolute blasphemy in the name of the God that we are claiming? And it's, I think, again, having the wherewithal to understand, to be able to parse through some of that with wisdom is really what's missing. And to honor your time, I can end there because I think that brings a full circle, which is I'm so encouraged that literally you, but what you represent, being in the space that you are in and going to end up being professionally is genuinely like a hopeful thing to me, seeing you enter into that space. And I'm like, that is going to be so powerful, just having you being pouring into the people you're going to be pouring into and working alongside with. So that's a hopeful thing I'm taking away, just from knowing a little bit about where your calling's at right now.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to have you back.
Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Absolutely, I'm gonna have to have you back. There's so much that we opened up a lot of cans of worms along the way, and I think that can be a bunch more episodes. Really,
worms everywhere.
Yeah,
I love
everywhere.
having worms everywhere.
All right, I'm gonna let you go, listeners. Thank you so much. If you made it all the way to the end, and the music you're listening to is done by our guy Dylan Dent, and the artwork was created by Ashley Bush. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisting. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up. The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. in my heart armory. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley.